So now that you've had a chance to try balancing some equations, let's go over a few of these. As I said, the ones on here generally start out relatively easy, relatively straightforward, and they progressively get more difficult. So let's start with our first one. And you'll notice in the first three, I set up the table for you. As I said, this is a good way to approach one of these problems. Once you get to number 4, you've got to decide if that's how you want to do it by setting up a table or if there's another way that works better for you. Ultimately, in the long run, the way that you get there doesn't matter. This is just one, in my opinion, organized way to be able to do it. So we can start by summing up what we have already. 3 irons on the left, 1 on the right, 5 that's 5 oxygens on the left, and 3 on the right. And we have 1 carbon and 1 carbon. So again, I'm going to ignore oxygen. Oxygen is going to be challenging to deal with here. And I'm going to start with iron. So if I put a 3 out here in front of iron oxide, that puts my iron to 3 and my oxygen to 5, and we're done. All right, let's go on to number 2. So again, we're going to count up 1 chromium, 8 sulfurs, 3 sulfurs, 2 chromium. So I certainly could start by balancing the chromium. And we can do that. 2 chromium, 2 chromium. But we might not want to do that because we know it's going to become unbalanced anyway because we have to put a coefficient on the right side of our equation. Now, these numbers are a little more unusual to deal with. We've got 8 on one side and 3 on the other side. So how could we get this to a common number of sulfurs? What number would work for us? Easiest way to do this is going to be use 24. So if we put 8 on this side and 3 over here, that gives us 24 sulfurs on each side. That also changes our chromiums here to 16, and in order to balance that, we're going to need to make that 16 as well. All right, let's look at number 3. So 2 berylliums, 1 beryllium, 1 carbon, 1 carbon, 2 hydrogens, 6 hydrogens, and 1 oxygen and 2 oxygens. So where should we start? Well, there's any number of places that we can start, but the easiest place to start is going to be with the beryllium because it shows up in exactly 1 reactant and 1 product. So if I put a 2 in front of beryllium hydroxide, beryllium is balanced, we get 2 there. At the same time, our oxygens on the right side go to 4 and hydrogens up to 8. We can then put a 4 in front of water. That gives us 8 hydrogens and 4 oxygens, and our equation is balanced. So it's just always going to be this sort of step-by-step process that gets us there. And so let's do one more of these. Let's go down to number 8. Copper, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. 1, 1, 1, 3. Copper on the product side, 1. Hydrogens are 2. Nitrogens are 3. And oxygens are 8. So the first thing I would suggest in a problem like this is we're going to, again, try and avoid oxygen. It shows up in 4 out of our 5 compounds. So I'm going to start with what might be the easiest one, which is hydrogen. And we might say, let's put a 2 there. Problem with that is that only gives us 2 nitrogens on the left, and we know we need more than that already. So we could put a 3 here to balance the nitrogen. Problem is then we end up with an odd number of hydrogens on the left side, and because the only hydrogen source on the right side is in water, we need an even number of hydrogens. So what will help us get there? How about 4? So let's start at 4. So this goes to 4, this goes to 4, and oxygen to 12. Now we can put a 2 in front of water to balance hydrogens. So that goes to 4, and oxygen goes to 10. Now, this is where this one starts to get more complicated, because you can see 2 of our elements, copper and hydrogen, are balanced. Nitrogen and oxygen are not. Now I can balance nitrogen by putting a 2 in front of NO. That gives us 4 here and 11 oxygens. So this actually gets us into a very complicated situation, because the only thing that's not balanced is our number of oxygens, and we're off by 1. The problem becomes if we adjust the number of oxygens on the product side in any of the 3 compounds we have, we're going to cause something else to become unbalanced. So the question becomes, what do we do at this point? And to be honest, at this point, this becomes a little bit of trial and error. And so we may have to try a few different things until we finally get one right. So I'm going to start by increasing the amount of copper nitrate. And the reason I'm going to do that is it's going to be easy to offset that on the left side of the equation. So if I put a 2 here, now I've got 2 copper, I've got 2 more nitrogens for 6, and I've got 6 more oxygens for 17. All right, now first I'm going to balance copper. So we're still good there. And I can increase this to 6 to balance nitrogen. So now we've got 6 here, 6 here, and 18. So we're getting closer, but we're not quite there. So I'm going to make this a 3. That'll balance our hydrogens. As well as our oxygens. So let's check. We've got 6 hydrogens on each side, 2 coppers, 6 nitrogens, and I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. We initially had 15, and so now we've gone to 17. So has that helped us? Maybe. Let's see what happens if we do it again. Let's make this 3 and this 3. Now we know we still have 3 coppers on both sides. But now on the right side of the equation, we also have 8 nitrogens, 23 oxygens, and still 6 hydrogens. So we can account for that again by increasing the amount of nitric acid, HNO3, make that 8. That also increases this to 24 and increases our hydrogens to 8. And you can see we're getting somewhere now, because what's the difference now? We need 2 more hydrogens and we need 1 more oxygen. Well, that's just a molecule of water. We make that 4, and these are balanced. So our final coefficients here are 3, 8, 3, 2, and 4. So a much more complicated example, a lot more going on in this question. And as I said, definitely a bit of trial and error involved. And so sometimes when these get really hard, that may be what you have to try and do, is just take a guess, see if it works. If it seems like it's helping, keep going. If not, take a step back and try again.